What's up, guys? This week we wrap up the preseason and we look forward to finally, our first match of the regular season against Houston this coming Saturday. Come on, lads.
Yes.
All that and more coming up.
Welcome to the show, 5 Shy Fam. I'm AJ. This is Tanner McLeod. Before we get into it, become a member of the notification squad by hitting the bell next to the subscribe button.
To get started this week, we look back at those two matches that finished up our preseason. They weren't great, let's be honest, no one really enjoyed them, but there were definitely some talking points in each of them. We'll start off with the Minnesota game last Wednesday, which featured Barco's first goal for the team, which was nice.
Indeed. Yeah, he was able to cut in, and this dribble move that was quite impressive.
Took
got
on
around.
like 3 guys.
Yeah, took on like 3 guys, and then shot it. You know, right corner, it was just unstoppable. I loved it. I fell out to see a little bit. I was just like, wow. You know,
that's what we paid $15 million for. Like,
yeah.
I think that's going to happen a lot more. I think that's something that Assad got goals last year. Don't get me wrong. I mean, he had goals and he had, you know, assists of assists and straight up assists. But I think Barco is going to give us a lot more of a, you know, a direct goal threat from the right hand side as opposed to Assad, because I think he's quicker. He's better with his feet, and I think that he offers that outlet. You know, he can create something sometimes. He can show that while it might not have been against, you know, the best competition, he can take on players, and he has the confidence to do so. And when he hits it, it's the same as Tito. It's not getting saved. So I think to have that, you know, all across the attacking front is brilliant. And I think, you know, we've seen flashes, and we'll talk about that when we review the preseason as a whole in a bit. But, you know, you definitely see the flashes there that I think once he gets up to that speed of MLS play and once he plays full matches with the guys that are going to be playing week in and week out, I think we're going to see some brilliant things from that guy.
I agree. And the Yamil Assad comparisons are always going to happen. And, yeah, he did have a reminiscent goal in you know, the past preseason, essentially. Yamil Assad against Chattanooga, that was very reminiscent of Barco's goal, like shooting it from a distance and, you know, into a corner. That is gonna happen. Like these comparisons are always gonna happen, and it's gonna happen throughout the season. I just feel like you know, Barco is his own player. He's brought in to break down defenses differently than Yamil Assad could have. He's got a higher potential than Yamil Assad. It's just, yeah, I think we should leave it at that, but I know that these comparisons are going to continue.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I think that as it's difficult because they are 2 different types of players, like completely. I mean, when you look at the way that they play, they're you know, there's definitely a difference there. And
Yamil Assad's more defensive.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, Yamil Assad has, you know, more flexibility on where he can play. Yeah. But I think, you know, those comparisons will be drawn all season, and I think that could be a dangerous thing because Barco is younger. You know, he's got more to learn, and I think that as an 18-year-old moving to a new club with the pressure, there's a lot more pressure on him than there was on Assad, and I think that it will be unfair, even though we're all going to do it consciously or unconsciously. It's unfair to put those expectations on him, and you know, to think, okay, well, he's going to get 15 and 10. Yeah. Or, oh, if he doesn't get the same numbers as Assad, is he a flop? And it's like, I think, you know, we've definitely heard, you know, people talk about that, seen it on Twitter. I think we definitely need to slow down. We are excited, but we shouldn't be thinking that he's going to come out and bang in those curlers every single match. And, you know, as we said, you know, we've seen the flashes, and I'm really high on the player. I think he's going to be great. I think we definitely need to pace ourselves and, you know, just be like, he's young, let's just see what happens, and not to jump on him if he plays poorly, which is going to happen.
And so, yeah, talking about the match, it was a 1-1 result against Minnesota United, and we gave away a penalty. Surprise, surprise.
That's 3-3, right?
3-3. Maybe it's bad luck, maybe it's just how we play against them, but it's against a team that we shouldn't really be conceding penalties against.
They're not good.
Yeah.
They offered nothing. I mean, and honestly, like, in every single match that United has played against them, even in the loss at the Benz, the only reason that happened is because keeper sent off in the first half.
Kyle Reynish, you get
penalty,
a little rash.
You know, off the get-go, playing from behind, took the lead, and then just lost it defensively at the end because, in my opinion, you had a terrible right back who didn't know how to play the position in Mears, who didn't close the player down, who allowed him to get in a good cross, and then you had a guy who made a brilliant header. against your fourth string keeper. And I thought, he could have done better on those last 2 goals on a couple of occasions, but he's the fourth string keeper. Yeah. He's never expected to be in that situation.
Exactly. He looked like a deer in headlights.
Genuinely, it would have been tough for anyone to do that, and especially in front of that crowd and that atmosphere,
and going cold essentially.
Exactly. Just be like, oh, I have to go in now. Yeah. Minnesota's a frustrating team because we're kind of compared to them unfairly, I think, for both sides, because there's ambition from our side. There's not as much from their side. Yeah. But because we came into the league at the same time, they're kind of the 2 clubs that get compared with each other because of that. And I think it's silly because, not to brag, but Atlanta United are so much better. And I think that the 6-1 scoreline we saw in the first match is honestly partly reflective of how these 2 squads are. And it's frustrating even in preseason to see us have a 1-1 result and look so poor against a side that isn't good at all. And I think we'll probably be bottom of the table in their side of the league. Yeah,
and this is a part that we'll get into, but we didn't have all our players, our projected starting 11 in at really any point. So I think with that, there's that caveat. Like, we need to put that aside, and that's like, okay, it's because of maybe that. So, and then we'll move on to our other match. On the weekend, we played Charleston Battery, our former USL affiliate. That was some would say, maybe not the most exciting 0-0 draw. But we saw a bunch of our kids and reserve players play together. And we also saw the first pairing of Tito Villalba and Franco Escobar. So that was fantastic. I thought they looked great.
Yeah, I thought it was brilliant. I think that with Escobar, there's a lot to be desired on the defensive side. Yeah. I think sometimes he gets himself caught a bit too far out to sea, and he's really too far to even get back in position. But
still a limited miss.
It's a limited sample size, but I think that's something that his ambition to get forward though will suit this team, because that's how this team plays. It has its fullbacks overlapping. They want them to join the attack, especially at home. Last season, more often than not, you'd see Greg Garza ahead of Yamil Assad. And Anton Walks was phenomenal defensively, but he maybe didn't offer as much going forward. I think Escobar offers a lot going forward.
He does.
There was a couple of times, mind you, it was Charleston, but he was stuck in a position and then dribbled around, 3 players, and then was off moving down the right wing.
Right.
When he came in against Minnesota, he drew that free kick almost off the bat. Yeah. He's very creative and kind of a tall player, for a right back.
5'11",
decent. I think he's definitely the person I want to see starting at right back game in and game out.
For sure. Because we saw a lot of the pairing of Zizzo at right back. We saw Lorenowitz as the right center back. That's scary. I think we don't really necessarily want to see that too many times in the regular season.
It's just there's no pace there, and more often than not, it felt like that Gressel was coming so far infield that Zizzo was the only one offering any width on the right hand side, and then there was just a massive space there. That's basically asking for a long ball over the top and Larry to pace with a striker or a winger, which is never going to happen.
Right. Agreed.
So that was a bit terrifying. But I think another interesting point about Escobar being such an attacking fullback is I think it actually relieves a lot of pressure on Tito, and that it's gonna force it's going to force that left-handed midfielder left-sided midfielder to be pushed back even farther, which will pin the defense in. And it's also going to make the fullback have to make a choice. Right. Because either you're going to have Tito cutting inside to create, or you're going to have, Escobar running past him. Right. And I think that that's something that maybe didn't exist on the right-hand side last season. And now you're going to have that from both the left and the right. And I think, especially when teams bunker down, that's a nice option to have because you can create from any position, and that forces them to be even more disciplined. And being MLS, that's a very difficult thing to do.
Absolutely. Another person we should talk about who had a very, very good showing was Andrew Carlton, who was doing the flicks. He was dropping off some balls.
That little rainbow type flick over the top to Escobar that almost came off. It was brilliant. He looked confident. I think, I saw a lot of people who were talking about why is he playing in the hole, because he plays on the wings, I guess, in the academy side. And I think that's his position. I think he needs to
because he's not fast enough for the wing.
He's quick.
Like,
I mean, he's really quick. There's a difference between quick and fast.
Right.
You know, on the left you have Barco. On the right you have Tito.
Right.
Both are absolutely rapid.
Yeah.
Carlton, not a big guy.
Yeah.
But, you know, he's really quick with his feet. He seemed very confident. Yeah. And I think that he has, you know, low center of gravity, able to, you know, maneuver around players and dribble around players. And I think that's what he can do. And I think he has the ability, the wherewithal, and the creativity to create from that number 10 spot.
I think that's his biggest asset is that creativity and being able to pick out that pass when he thinks about it too. So, you know, not just being able to actually, you know, say, you know, I'm going to do that and then not be able to pull it off. He was able to pull off some of those moves, and especially kind of later when it was just a one-touch flick into space and John Gallagher was able to run onto the ball and he had a chance at goal. You know, I think that speaks volumes of that game for him.
He's confident. I think he'll play a lot at the USL level, I think. Yeah. And I think that'll be really good for him because I think I don't think this is the season we see a lot of Carlton. If I'm being perfectly honest, I think fans.
Tata did say that he has impressed him enough that he sees him more at Atlanta United than Atlanta United 2. But I think it's also a matter of minutes.
Yeah, so. I think for me, it's like I get that. And I think that a lot of the times you may see him sitting on the bench for the first team and playing for Atlanta United 2 either, you know, a few days before or a few days after. Because I think he's a phenomenally, you know, gifted player, but he needs to play. And he's not going to play unless Almiron gets hurt. And even if Almiron or Barco. I mean, and, you know, I think that for his development, it'd be brilliant for him to play more minutes at the USL level, just because he's playing against grown men who are going to try to, you know, bully him because of who he is. Yeah. And I think maybe he could use that, and then with a year of experience there, I think then he'd be ready to step up and take that mantle from Miggy, because I don't think Miggy is here in a year. And if you have a ready-made replacement who's confident, who has the talent, who has learned how to play against grown men, I think he could be a natural
He could be better served, at USL.
And getting those minutes coming off the bench. Like, if you need an option at the end of the match, he can come on and give you 20 minutes, 15 minutes. Although Tata is not really one for subbing in matches, as we saw last season. But maybe if he thinks he can offer him something, he can come on. I think, you know, usually with subs, I think you'll see Gressel coming on ahead of him. Yeah. Just because there's more experience there. Yeah. And, you know, he's not a bad player at all either. Obviously, Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, and he's got more utility, I think. Yeah. So, but in terms of, the Charleston Battery match, you know, a good showing from a lot of the reserves against a pro team. I mean, they're a team that's very well organized. They have played together a lot in that sense. So, you know, for us to only get a 0-0, I think it's not really that bad of a result. Yes, of course, we would have loved to get goals. That's kind of the story of preseason for us this in 2018, is that we didn't put the ball in the back of the net. Like, against the Nashville side, that's a whole different thing, because that was against a team that hadn't really played together at all. But against the rest of the teams, we scored 2 goals. So it wasn't fantastic, but I think the goals will come in the regular season. It's just also we got to get the regular starting squad playing together. I don't think
we ever saw the first 11 that will be the first 11 play together at any point in time this preseason.
Yeah, because Parkey didn't play until the last match. So.
I mean, you didn't see Escobar starting. You saw Zizou starting a lot. You didn't see Tito to the last 2 games. I mean, and we'll get more into this in a match preview that we have coming out later this week. Well, not a match, but a season preview we have coming out later this week. But, you know, I think that we've yet to see that best 11 out there, and we've yet to see the best 11 on a pitch that's actually worth them playing on.
This is true too. Yeah, the Charleston Battery
slipping
pitch,
all over the place. It wasn't great.
Yeah,
I mean, the Nashville pitch, we already know about that. So, you know, I think when they get on a really, you know, a quality MLS pitch, or, you know, once they play in Houston, once they get playing in the Bends, when those passes are coming off, they know that they don't have to worry about slipping wherever they go. Yeah. I mean, it's gonna happen. Those players have played together. They know it. And you're betting some new players in Nagby and Barco. Yeah. And obviously there's going to be a learning curve there. But I think once they do that, and once they start playing at full speed, because I don't think they ever really got out of first or second gear in the preseason, Once they do that, I think the goals will come.
Yeah.
I'm much more concerned about the back half than I am the front half.
Yeah, agreed. And so let's kind of recap the preseason on a whole. Going in, we definitely thought that there would be more positional battles. It ended up showing that Tata pretty much has made up most of his mind, maybe with a few surprises. But, you know, one of them being Hildebrandt and Can, who, yeah, we basically didn't see Mitch Hildebrandt at all this preseason. And so I think that pretty much cements his place at USL.
Yeah, I think that really says all you need to know about that one. I wish that we could have seen him in that Charleston match. I didn't think that Can looked brilliant, but at the same time, you have to look at who was playing in front of him.
Yeah,
so
you had Miles Robinson.
You can't really hold
Parkey's
that against
first
him.
match, yeah.
And you also know what you got from him last season. I mean, he wasn't outstanding, but he made some brilliant saves, and he was all around a solid goalkeeper for this level of for MLS. Right. You could not complain if he had to come in and he had confidence. I think he could get a job done. I'm not worried about him costing United lots of points.
Right.
Hildebrandt not playing, I guess that does say if he doesn't play in a single friendly, I guess that means he's USL. But if he plays well at USL, there's nothing preventing him from coming up to the first team if there's an injury to anyone, which can happen. We saw that happen last year in that Minnesota match, actually. So,
no, it's true, yeah. And I think he's a guy that he's a good shot stopper, so he's able to, I think in a pinch, if we really, really need it, that's perfectly fine. I think it's how he maybe commands a box. It's maybe how he stops crosses. It's maybe how he organizes the defense. So those are all things that are very important, and it's unknown. We don't know how he would do at this level, and we'll find out at USL, and if he cuts the mustard there, then possibly at MLS. Another player, or maybe a combo of players that we were looking at, Jose Hernandez, Mikey Ambrose, that left back, that deputy battle essentially to Greg Garza. Yeah, like who showed more to you?
I think with the season starting this week, I guess I should go ahead and make that. I think Mikey Ambrose is going to be the guy that deputizes there. I also think it wouldn't be shocking if McCann played there again. Even though he has been playing in midfield, I think you saw what you get from him. It's definitely a little bit more defensive, a little more balance on that left-hand side.
And he shifted over during matches too.
So I think you're going to see Hernandez at the USL level. I think there were flashes there, especially going forward in the Charleston match. But there's a lot on the defensive side that he needs to work on. And I don't think that sitting on the bench at the MLS level will help him with that. Obviously, the USL team does train, with and around the first team. So he'll learn there. But I think he needs to play regularly and learn at the USL level before I'm comfortable with him playing at the MLS level. But again, there's potential there. There's a reason they bought him. He's a talented young player. And I think that in the future he might be an option, but I think right now might be a bit too soon.
Yeah, agreed. In terms of maybe another player that we were a little high on and then maybe didn't show as much is Romero Williams, who, yes, put away a good goal against Nashville, but when he was deployed up top for majority of the minutes, he wasn't really doing too much. He was holding up the ball a little bit better, but it was just like the story of the rest of our preseason. We weren't putting the ball in the back of the net.
No, I think that especially when Tito came on in the second half of that Minnesota match, he had a couple of chances that I would like to see a striker put away. I think that their chances Joseph puts away, which is, if you have those chances inside, especially in and around the 6-yard box, and you have a ball driven in, you just got to put a foot on it sometimes. And I think there's a couple times where he absolutely fluffed his lines, and he could have done something and didn't. And maybe that's a confidence thing. Maybe he needs to play. I don't think Vasquez necessarily separated himself from that, from that in that battle to be that second striker. But I think he might be the one that they would take as that first option off the bench as a striker as opposed to Romario, just because he snatched at his chances and he didn't do much with them. And that's something that I expected, especially against, Minnesota and Charleston for him to do because he's done it against that level of competition before.
Right. Well, and that's the thing. It's like, yeah, he has got nothing left to prove at the USL level. And so I think for him, yeah, this is the next step for him, is to see how well he can play, coming off the bench, because that's his next step. Now, in terms of really showing too much outside of that, it's preseason. It's it's not like we're talking about him at midseason. So again, yeah, I mean,
he'll get chances. I think he'll definitely get chances at the first team, and I want to see him do well because I think we all know he can do well.
For sure.
We've seen what he can do.
Yeah.
We've seen the flashes of what he has and what he can offer.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't just give him the number 9 shirt if they thought he wasn't going to play. I mean,
exactly.
That's a number that commands a first team spot.
Indeed.
So I think that he will get those chances.
Right.
It's just up to him to take them, and
Right.
I think we all want him to take them because we all want him to be successful. It's just when he gets in those opportunities, he's going to have to put them away once the season gets going, because if he keeps snatching at them, then I don't know what else you can look for from him.
Yeah. And we'll move on to another positional battle, which is something we're a little deficient in at the moment, and we're all wondering if Darren Eales and Carlos Bocanegra are going to do something about it. It's that defensive midfielder position, and players that have deputized there, where it feels like Jeff Larentowicz hasn't even really been able to play the position that he's going to be really playing in the regular season. But we have Chris McCann playing a lot of the minutes there. We have Oliver Shannon getting some minutes there as well, and Chris Goslin, the homegrown. Any one of those players show the most to you, and maybe one that didn't really?
I think that Goslin has the potential. I think he showed some flashes here and there, some composure on the ball. He definitely kept it simple in the Charleston match. I don't think he got too far ahead of himself. I think he'll benefit a lot from playing a lot of minutes at the USL level. Shannon, just a little bit that we saw of him. I mean, we didn't see a great deal. I mean, obviously, I think he's going to be a decent player. It's just getting those minutes might be tough to prove it. So I think he's another player that I wouldn't mind seeing on the bench for the first team, but playing USL just to get some minutes, to build up that confidence, to get to get that match fitness and be sharp, so that when he does come off the bench, if he has to start, McCann, he's not a bad player.
Yeah.
But he doesn't really, for the wage he's on, he doesn't do enough for me. I think he's a player that played very well. Played well at left back last season when he had to.
Yeah.
I think he offered something different there, a bit more, defensive solidarity.
Yeah.
But in that midfield spot, there's just it leaves something to be desired.
Right. It's I think maybe it's a lack of pace, maybe it's a lack of awareness, defensive awareness, to be able to make the interception or make a tackle in a crucial spot. And so, instead of in that positional awareness, so it's like when a player's coming through, that kind of chemistry with the back line, if it's not there, you'll see what happened against Nashville. That first goal, or their goal, essentially, they're all in the same area instead of talking to each other or kind of inherently knowing where they should be. I'd
almost rather take Kratz over him, even though Kratz at least offers you something from dead ball scenarios. Even though he doesn't offer you much else, it's still something I feel that's maybe more than McCann, if that makes sense.
Right. And
it's just to throw something else out there. I mean, because he does have a brilliant dead ball delivery.
For sure. And to be fair to McCann, he's got a great left foot in terms of a cross, so that's great. And also, I've seen him, get some chances outside of the box where he might have been able to hit a long ball, and they almost always go in. Like, it's fairly close. He hasn't gotten a goal from it yet, but I feel like if he gets more chances open outside the box, might go in. Who knows?
Who knows?
But in terms of that player, in terms of the defensive midfielder position, I don't think any of those have staked a claim into they're a definitive. They should deputize for Jeff Larentowicz, because Jeff Larentowicz, he is what he is at this point too. He's you know, an elder statesman in MLS. He's a good, you know, positional awareness type of player. He's not going to be very fast, but it's essentially he's going to be the player that he was last year. Hopefully he can play as many minutes or, you know, something close to, because that's really what we'll need until we find some other depth or players to, you know, replace him.
I think that's the bit. I think from what I've seen this preseason, they need to sign someone.
Yeah.
Because in my opinion, Larry did great last year.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Lernovitz, you couldn't have asked more from what he gave the team last year.
And it was a surprise.
surprise. I think he needs to be the depth. I think he has to be that guy that can come off the bench when you need to batten down the hatches at the end of the match and hold out for whatever you have. Just hang on to give that defensive cover if you have to have it at center back.
Right.
With the money that's available, having lost Carmona, which obviously I think we really saw the effect of that in preseason.
Yeah.
And then the money from the Assad trade, I know that it's difficult to maybe get a player who's not fitting in Europe now because their transfer window's closed.
Yeah.
They need to sign someone, whether it's now or in the summer. I think that's probably the biggest concern for me is going to be that guy that goes with Nagby.
Right.
And I don't think they should spare any expense when it comes to putting a player there.
Yeah.
Because if you can put a solid player in midfield, I think that really shores up that team, because then you have, you know, 2/3 of your team that's top drawer and probably better than anyone else.
Agreed. Yeah, we'll get into a little bit more into that, you know, the team as a whole in our season preview. But moving on, we'll talk about essentially how Columbus exploited a weakness of ours in preseason that, you know, I think will rear its ugly head, you know, in the regular season. It's essentially, and we're not quite ready there because we didn't have our actual projected starting 11 playing together, but it's when a team parks the bus, and then what Columbus crew do well is they're able to pass out from the back as well. And maybe like 1-2 in a counterattack, they're in. Like, they're the type of team that we're going to hate playing against. And we haven't been able to build that chemistry to be able to break them quite down yet. And they just exploited it.
I think that should be a definite concern. I think that Columbus has provided the blueprint, in my opinion, for how to play against Atlanta United. And I think that every team, unless they're absolutely insane, or they're really good, like Toronto, Seattle, Portland, you know, those top teams in the league. And even then, I think it'd be in their best interest. When they play in Atlanta, they're going to try to do that. They're going to try to be very, very solid defensively. Because when you watch that Columbus game, they defend as a unit.
Right.
I mean, you see basically 2 lines of 4, and then the strikers basically trying to press the center backs when the center backs are, you know, that high up the pitch.
Right.
And that's dangerous. All of them are behind the ball. And as soon as they win it back, they break, and they break quickly. And the issue with that is that, especially at home, United push those fullbacks really high. And it leaves those center backs, you know, whether it be Parkey, LGP, you know, Lernovitz, it leaves them exposed for pace. And out of all of them, LGP is the quickest, and by far he loves a last-ditch tackle. But that's a dangerous game to play.
For sure.
So I think that's something that, you know, the more effective Atlanta United become at attacking, I think that becomes less of a problem, because if Atlanta United get the first goal, it's over, because then they have to come out. The second teams open up against Atlanta. I think Atlanta's probably the most dangerous team in the league when it comes to, when you open up against them, they will hurt you. I think Toronto have more of a bully factor because you have a big striker in Altidore, and you have a player in Javinko who can literally create from anything. So I think that that's kind of what you see from them more, as opposed with Atlanta, it's just everywhere. They're going to poke you everywhere, and they're going to find a way to get in. And, you know, I think, you know, again, something that we'll talk about in the season preview, but I think, you know, that first goal is going to be big against all those teams because they're going to park it every single time.
In our next segment, we're going to talk about how Atlanta's cup chances are rated very highly in numerous sources. And one of them being 538, they're saying we have the biggest threat to Toronto's repeat quest, and that the Five Stripes have a 13% chance of taking the title and an even larger 16% chance of winning the Supporter Shield. And another one, Westgate Las Vegas Superbook. They said we're second favorites behind Toronto to win the MLS Cup. We're at 6-1 and they're at 4-1. So I think if anyone's a betting man, you should
actually decent odds.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not bad. That's not bad. I'd put a tenner on that
Right.
if gambling was legal, which it's not.
Dude.
But I think that is very interesting to see that Atlanta is second favorites in their second season behind Toronto. I think that says that there's a lot of expectation there, which is both good and worrying, I think.
Sure.
But I think that it's brilliant that people recognize what Atlanta means to MLS. To only, again, to be in the second season and to have that number 2 tag there and to push for number 1, I mean, that's respect from the bookies, from the media. So I'm interested to, I think that we can do it. I'm hopeful that we can do it. But it's interesting to see that, It's last year it was like, what can they do? Can they make the playoffs?
Right.
And this year it's like they could win.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we basically went from no hype last year to pretty much all the hype.
Hype Depot.
Yeah, Hype Depot. I mean, pretty much it's where people are rating us so highly and we look so good on paper that, I mean, why not? Why not put some money down on Atlanta United? While, maybe you should put it on a team that has kind of way fewer odds, and then maybe you might get a bigger return if you win.
I think the biggest thing is that, trophies are never won on paper, and teams better than Atlanta United have had better odds and looked better and had better chances and then not done well.
For sure.
And I think that, not that I think it will happen, but I think that there are glaring flaws and weaknesses with the team that, that could lead to things, to issues happening, arising during the season. Not that I think they will, but, I think that there are those things there. So we have to, even with these odds and this hype that definitely, excites fans, we should definitely be wary about buying too much into our own hype.
This is true. Although, maybe we'll just outscore all our opponents.
I'm fine with that. Just put away 100 goals because I think they'll score more than last season, and then who cares how we defend if we win every game 5-3. We won. We put 5 goals past them.
And in our odds and ends segment, we congratulate Uncle Arthur Blank, for making the Georgia Sports Hall of Fame. Congrats to him.
He probably owns it, let's be honest.
Yeah. I mean, he's and he did it for basically bringing Falcons into a more state of prominence and probably a little bit of how well he's placed Atlanta United into the ether and where people are really just in awe of the what Atlanta United
it's done a
are
lot
doing.
for the community. I mean, I think Atlanta United in one season has established itself as, I go everywhere and I see Atlanta United gear, which is incredible.
Sure.
Like for a soccer team in America to see people wearing soccer gear everywhere and be proud of it.
Yeah, and speaking of community, he does a lot of the charity work and a lot of things that are making our whole Atlanta and metro area just thrive a little bit more. So
I mean, from the 5 Point Soccer Station's pitch, it's like stuff like that. He's involved doing things like that, soccer in the streets. I'm pretty sure he's involved with them a little bit as well. I mean, he does so much for the community, and I think it's brilliant, not just what he does in sport, but what he does for the people, because he does really care about Atlanta, and I think that's brilliant. So again, nothing but congratulations to him. He absolutely deserves it.
Absolutely. And our next thing is
Boswell watch.
Boswell,
Boswell watch.
Talk about him again. It's probably the last, Boswell thing that we'll probably touch on for a while, unless he gets hired by MLS or something. But Bobby Boswell, man, like he sent a little, internet little like Instagram video to MLS and basically asked for, hey, I've been in the league a while. Can you give me a little highlight reel? I mean, everybody else that retired, they got something. How about me? MLS, they trolled back essentially, and they started off with a goal that you see, and it's he scores the goal. It's for DC United, but the rest of them are just own goals, and it's wow. That's legendary stuff from MLS.
That's pretty much banter on par with Boswell. I expect nothing less involving him in any way whatsoever.
Yep.
Oh man.
Indeed.
It's good stuff.
And when the Atlanta United 2 season starts, we'll be covering it as well throughout the regular season. So come back here for that as well. But they officially unveiled the head coach of Atlanta United 2, Scott Donnelly, and he had this to say. He said, "I'm very excited to be here and to lead this club as we prepare to play our season at Coolray Field." He's a guy who's aware that Atlanta United 2, they want to be competitive, but they are also kind of essentially, a reserve squad for Atlanta United. So they're there to get the players ready to be on Atlanta United. So he knows that. He knows that it's a delicate balance, and it's something that they will really kind of tread the little high wire very very carefully. And also, Darren Eales had this to say. He said, "Having a pathway for player development is very important to us as a club." So that just, further explains that yes, Atlanta United 2 is there for this. It's there to make sure our players are ready.
It's like the Academy Plus, basically.
Yeah.
It's Academy, USO, first team.
Yeah.
And I think it's brilliant. We talked about that when they first announced it, and I think
Right.
it's an awesome thing that they have. And it also provides the chance for fans, not just us, but maybe fans who can't get down to the bins, probably a bit more of a family-friendly atmosphere than the bins, and it gives people to watch, hopefully the stars of the future and,
Right.
The reserves play, and it should be, an enjoyable atmosphere and a fun time to watch, and I
Right.
think it's brilliant. And it gets another part of the community engaged.
Right.
And, I look forward to going to a couple games myself. And, we'll talk about it again, like you said, in the weekly podcast when we have a chance to cover them, because I think it'll be important, because you'll see Carlton, you'll see Gosling, you'll see guys like that, playing there and then coming into the first team.
Right. And it was because of those type of players that were progressing so rapidly that they decided, we need to actually create a USL team this soon. Because initially they were going to kind of maybe take their time and then maybe the third year, but because there needed to be more playing time for these players, they decided to do it, and I think it'll just maybe satiate our just hungry need for more soccer. So that's really good.
And guys, it is time. It is match week. There is an actual game with points on the line. The regular season is starting.
So excited.
Atlanta United, Houston Dynamo, this Saturday, 3:30, Univision, finally.
Absolutely. And we're playing against Houston Dynamo that we should not take them lightly. They are a rated team in the West. They finished 4th with 50 points. They scored 57 goals. They let in 45 goals. They're a team that is formidable. They also, against them on Saturday, we have a 41% chance of beating them. So we are one of, if the only team that is away that has a chance of beating the home team. So the chances are decent, but I think we need to really take this game very seriously. They're not a pushover. It's a game that, will be hard fought.
Yeah, I think that they did lose their best player in the offseason in Eric Torres, and I think that's definitely a positive for United, because they were actually not to be very bad with the puns, but Houston was a dynamic team last year.
Sure. Yeah.
They definitely offered a lot going forward, and I think that United need to be very wary of that, especially because obviously it is preseason. And last season was the same with, a very subpar preseason. But they can't have that form kind of follow them into the regular season. They're going to have to be sharp off the get-go. Right. And I think they're going to have to be very aware defensively about what Houston can do. Otherwise, they will catch us out and they will score some goals.
It won't be the same as last season. When we played them at Bobby Dodd, I think we beat them 3-0.
Yeah.
That's at home. It's a different scenario. We were definitely in sort of a groove that day. This will be our very first match of the season. It's going to be more difficult because we haven't gelled yet. We haven't, played our entire projected starting 11. So this will be a very big test in seeing, where we are as a team. So
yeah, I think that if they can go out and get 3 points, it'll put a lot of my kind of worries to bed very quickly.
Sure.
Because they've just again, you know, they didn't have to get out of second gear or first gear, and I'm interested to see when that first starting 11 is announced. I'm hoping it's our strongest. I mean, I think both of us really agree on what the starting 11 will be. I mean, Escobar at right back.
Yep.
Hopefully, I mean.
Yep. Parker's beside him.
LGP nailed on. You know those two guys are going to be there.
Yep.
Garza.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't look fully fit in the preseason, so he might be a bit of a. He might be one of the
question
few
mark.
that could be a question mark there.
Right.
Nagby for sure, obviously. I think I'd like to see Larry slide back into his central defensive role that he had last year.
Hopefully Parky's healthy, and so
I think the front four is pretty much very obvious of what that's going to be.
Yeah, it will be Barco, it will be Almiron, it will be Tito, it will be Joseph. So if all goes well, and then of course Guzan in goal. So that's our projected starting 11. That should be our regular starting 11 going forward. But you never know, things will happen, injuries will happen, they pop up, we don't know. But that I think gives us our strongest chance of winning and has the most balance between what we need and how we want to play. So that's how we see the match going against Houston Dynamo on Saturday. Even though the odds from 538 say it's 41%, I think it's 2-2 draw. What about you?
I'm actually going to be a little bit more depressing. I think they might take a 2-1 loss.
Ooh.
I think that the goals are definitely going to be conceded.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen enough when it comes to final product.
Yeah.
I think that with the starting 11 that should be out there, they could get the win quite easily. Not quite easily, but I think they could definitely get the win. They could get the goals.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen that yet since they haven't played together yet. That first game being on the road, I think without that home support that they definitely thrive off of, I think it could be tough. But I think that they'll take that and they'll use that to leap into that DC United game.
Right.
So I'll go with 2-1 to Houston.
Do you think if we had this game was initially a home game, would we feel much better going into it than, say, going on the road?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that this team, not to say this team is bad on the road, but statistically speaking, they are incredible at home.
Yeah.
I mean, they are definite, especially when you play in front of the fans at Mercedes-Benz. That's probably, next to Seattle, hands down the best atmosphere in the league.
Right.
And against DC, there's going to be 70,000 in the stands. We'll talk about that next week, obviously. But they thrive off that home atmosphere. It's a cauldron, and they love playing there. And I think that there's a bit of a safety net there. You get to sleep almost, in your own bed the night before, really, or not far from home. Here you got to go on the road, and it's new. So, we'll see what happens. But it's the first game, so I'm just ready to see a competitive ball be kicked, and we'll see what happens.
Absolutely.
And our question of the day, just because it's the first week, we won't be doing this every week, but we just want to see what you guys think. Down in the comments, hit us up on Twitter. What do you think the score is going to be? Nice and simple. First match of the season. Come on, you Five Stripes.
And one thing before we go, it's a very long and strange thread, but essentially I have agreed to dress as Prince at a tailgate if we can get $3,000 or more in donation to the Fuji's family. It's a great cause, and it's for child survivors that are trying to get into soccer and into academics. So it's great. But you can get more information on all of it in the description below and how we got into this predicament in the first place. So that's it for us today. Remember to smash a like. Remember to subscribe if you haven't. For Tanner McLeod, I'm AJ. Thank you guys so much for watching.